I'm noticing that Mohammed Khalibaf, who will apparently on Friday be literally in a photo op with the Vice President of the United States. I cannot express to you how stomach turning that is. I don't care who the Vice President is. I don't care who the President is. Leaders of the United States of America in a photo op with a mass murdering terrorist supporter like Mohammed Khalibaf shaking hands 6 months after he blew away 42,000 innocent people in the streets.
I saw him shaking Netanyahu's hands, and he killed a lot more than that. So really doesn't bother me that much.
I mean, there's something completely weird going on here, Cenk, where Shapiro is ranting away against the Trump administration, having been the biggest supporter of the war in the first place. And there's you opening this show by broadly supporting what the president is doing, albeit not from a deep, abiding love of Donald Trump. But it seems that people like Ben Shapiro, Mark Levin, and others, they put all their chips in the casino on the red of Trump charging into Iran and getting rid of the regime and so on. But the moment that he looks like he's not going to do Benjamin Netanyahu's bidding, they've turned on him like rattlesnakes. What do you make of this?
Yeah, there's one small part that I agree with Ben on. So when our leaders shake hands with terrorist leaders who slaughtered tens of thousands of civilians, like Benjamin Netanyahu, it is stomach churning. When our Congress gives him standing ovations when he's a genocidal maniac and probably the largest terrorist leader in the world, it is stomach churning. But that's Netanyahu, not anyone else. They have a worse civilian kill ratio than Hamas or Hezbollah. And IDF has murdered 100 times the civilians of Hamas and Hezbollah. By any definition, they're a terrorist state. But it's interesting because, as you point out, Shapiro and Levin, oh my God, we love Trump. Oh, he's not doing Israel's bidding anymore. We hate Trump. Did you know that Miriam Adelson, and that's why I called it Miriam's War, because her family paid over $317 million to Trump's campaigns to make sure that they got a war like this, and they got the war that they ordered. Now, all of a sudden, they say, oh, there's a problem with the war we ordered. Well, that's kind of on you and not on us. So I'll get back to that in a second. But did you know that Miriam Adelson and Larry Ellison used to donate to Bill Clinton before they donated to Donald Trump? Because they don't care about Democrats or Republicans, and neither does Shapiro or any of the Israel First pundits. They only care about their beloved Israel. And it's obvious. They don't change their position on taxes, on Social Security, on health care. They only change based on whether Trump is in favor of Israel's actions or against Israel's actions. So what you're seeing playing out in American media and the government is Team America versus Team Israel. So if you're on Team America, hey, they're not going to have a nuclear weapon. That was our only concern. The Strait of Hormuz is open. The economy is going to hopefully get a little bit better now, right? Than at least in the middle of the war, right? If we continue in the war, the economy is definitely going to get worse. Gas prices are going to go up. Inflation is going to go up, and it endangers the entire global economy. So as far as American interests are concerned, we should absolutely leave. And honestly, there's really no question about that. So the argument that the Team Israel makes now is, yeah, but what about Iran's proxies, Hamas and Hezbollah? To which I say, so what? Why are we basing our entire foreign policy on the needs of a country whose population is the size of Papua New Guinea? Why do we care what Israel wants in terms of, oh no, it has to wipe out everyone who might oppose their fascist empire in the Middle East. It has to destroy Iraq and Iran and all 7 of their neighbors and take more of Gaza, more of the West Bank. Now we owe them southern Lebanon? Why do we owe them southern Lebanon? Well, and that's not defense, that's offense. They're stealing southern Lebanon. And no, we don't have to finance that. We have no moral or strategic or military obligation to Israel at all, which is a force for darkness in this world. In fact, literally every nation on earth is opposed to this war, except one, Israel. And we're having a debate, and it's 50-50 on whether we should listen to Americans, we should listen to the entire world, or if everyone should bow to Israel and do their demands of wiping out all their neighbors so they can take more territory.
What's crazy is that is what's going on right now. That literally was the argument here. Should we do what the rest of the world wants or what Israel wants? Cenk is a genius for coming up with that. An idiot on some other things, but yeah.
No, this is a no-brainer If you're on Team America, you come home, you get the peace, you improve your economy. If you're on Team Israel, you always want war. You always want ethnic cleansing and land grabbing. We don't have to serve their imperial empire.
Okay. And Hagar, you said this week Trump needs to tell the Iranians that Lebanon is off the table. They don't like it. We can make things more painful for them. And I want to play you a clip
like that.
From J.D. Vance's interview with Megyn Kelly on this subject.
And then you get to the next stage.
Is it included? Is Lebanon included?
Lebanon's,
Hezbollah?
it is a regional peace deal. It's going to include the Gulf. It's going to include Israel. It's going to include Lebanon. The idea is this is a true regional peace deal because,
How
again,
do we do that
if the
without
Iranians comply.
Netanyahu? Sorry, forgive me for interrupting.
No. The idea is that if the Iranians comply, then we are going to have a true transformative deal for the Middle East.
Now, there's a lot of ifs there, Hagar, but the bottom line is the Iranians have made it crystal clear that if Lebanon's not included in this deal, they're not interested in doing a deal at all. And if they want to, they can just go back and shut the Strait of Hormuz and fire a few missiles off at the Gulf states, and we're back where we were before. They know they've got that now in their asymmetric war arsenal, and it's very effective. So I'm not quite sure how anyone's going to bully the Iranians into excluding Lebanon from all this, and they've made it a pivotal part of the deal.
Yes, that's right, Piers. I mean, this is the thing I would say I'm most concerned with at the moment. And so let's take it back a little bit, because the Iranian regime is struggling generally, right? With the United States and Israel has assassinated 50 of its leaders. They don't have nuclear capabilities at the moment. They've lost a significant number of their ballistic missiles. They have no military, no navy. They're practically bankrupt. And their currency is worth nothing. At the same time, the Iranian regime has discovered all these new cards and bargaining chips they can play that are very effective and cheap, by the way. Playing in the Strait of Hormuz, of course, attacking the Gulf. They fashioned a new terrorist group called Ha'i, which has now launched at least 17 attacks across Europe, though very few people are talking about it. And then you have playing the Lebanon card, because the thing about Lebanon is that you can see where you've got this peace process. There have been peace talks since April 14th, and they're going generally well. There's a long way to go. I work on Lebanon Israel peace, by the way, efforts. I have an organization to do that. And there's a lot of potential there and opportunity. But the last thing that the Iranian regime wants is any kind of peace deal or normalization for any Arab country with Israel. And secondly, they definitely don't want Hezbollah to be undermined, because it's their most important proxy. So the longer the military operations go in Lebanon, the weaker Hezbollah gets. So the thing that to back up, you started off by saying that I had said that Trump should not sell Lebanon to Iran, and that when Iran insisted that Lebanon be included in these talks, my opinion is that Trump should have told the Iran.
The crazy part to me is that they just keep going back to all these things are terrorism, but we're bombing them. Like can't you just call it a military part then? Call it the Hezbollah troops then, if that's what you need to. But they're fighting the war the only way they can, and it is a war because we're bombing the shit out of them. So I don't really. It's terrorism versus terrorism in my view. Like if you're killing innocents and they're killing innocents, you don't get to call them the terrorists, and you're just a military. That's kind of stupid.
Iranian regime, no. Lebanon is not on the table. Come to me with something else. What is it else? What else do you want as part of this negotiation? And the reason is because we, the United States, lose on a very key national security interest for us. We want a peace deal between the Lebanese and Israelis. Right now, you have Lebanese and Israeli partners that are working really well. The only thing preventing them from a peace deal is Hezbollah. And so if you have a ceasefire, the way the Iranians want it, and let's be very clear, the Iranian regime does not want stability for Lebanon. They couldn't care less about the Lebanese people. A ceasefire with zero terms is a gift to Hezbollah. It allows it to rebuild, rearm, re-strategize. Whereas, and I'm not trying to imply that war is always better. If you have a ceasefire that has specific terms stipulated, for example, how will the disarmament of Hezbollah go? Who will do that disarmament? Who's going to monitor and verify that disarmament? How do you ensure they can't rebuild? What is the relationship between the Lebanese and Israeli?
Hey, are we going to go and disarm Israel too? Because you're talking about taking away everything they can use to defend themselves. You're taking their nukes. You don't want them arming their troops or whatever, their terrorists, however you call them. What are we going to do to Israel then? Because we can't just leave it like that. We're not going to just cripple this one side, take all their weapons, and still let the country that lies to us about having nukes just do whatever they want to them. Like that's just silly talk. I wouldn't sign that deal either.
Militaries, what is the role of the US military in that regard? These are all typical things you figure out in a ceasefire. However, if you indicate to the Iranian regime, you know what? If you, the Iranian regime, want a ceasefire in Lebanon, then you have the right to negotiate on behalf of the Lebanese government, something that the Lebanese leaders have been repeatedly begging not to confuse the two.
Okay, General Kimmitt, I want to play you a clip. This is Hillary Clinton yesterday saying that Netanyahu had been pushing hard for this war when she was in an administration. Let's take a look.
When I was secretary, it was a constant, theme by Netanyahu and his then government, the then defense minister, Ehud Barak, the former prime minister. It was relentless. It was a constant push. I remember.
What would he say to you?
What?
What would he say to you?
He would basically say, you need to support us in attacking Iran. And they would say things like, our planes are on the tarmac. And I'd say, well, good luck. I mean, great. Why are you doing this?
Where else would planes be other than in the air?
But on the tarmac, ready to take off. Yes.
Now, this follows a theme, General Kimmitt. We've heard, from other secretaries of state, Antony Blinken and others, and, from other people working in administrations, that administration after administration was put under a lot of heat by Netanyahu to try and engage America in a war with Israel against Iran. And it seems like in Donald Trump, they finally found a willing partner in this exercise. Now, as I said earlier, I don't for a moment think that ultimately the buck doesn't stop with Donald Trump. Of course it does. He's the president of the United States. He's the commander-in-chief. He's the one that makes this decision. But I also think it's pretty clear from everything we've now gleaned about the build-up to all this that he bought in to Netanyahu's view of what would happen. And that has simply not materialized. Do you think that if Trump had his time again, he would go into this war?
Yeah, well, it's a good thing that Keir Starmer is not our prime minister, having lost the war in 1776, because we know how that would turn out. But look, let's be very clear.
Well, actually, I agree with you about that.
Yeah, let's pull back a second. It has been the policy of every president since the discovery of the illegal Iranian nuclear program and their illegal extended range missile program that America would not tolerate a nuclear weapon in Iran. And we've tried everything. We talk about the typical tools of American power: diplomacy, information, military, economic. Well, the fact remains is through every other administration, those tools haven't worked because the military was not part of that. Now, we can talk about that, but it was inevitable that sooner or later, the Americans would be going to war, or the region would be going to war with Iran. Now, there's this false argument about it wasn't an imminent threat. But you know what an imminent threat is? If you have to wait till the 19 terrorists get on the airplanes because that's your definition of imminency, I'm not sure I would want to go with it. But the fact remains is that it was
This fucking moron thinks it's good. Just go attack people because Israel says they're going to get a nuclear weapon in a couple of weeks. And every time, nothing. But he never learns. He's in the fucking military. This is the people they let be in charge of people that kill people. That's crazy. You can't learn that, hey, just because Israel says something doesn't make it true. It usually makes it false, actually.
Inevitable that sooner or later, one of two things were going to happen. Either the Iranians were going to develop a nuclear weapon, which would then lead to the
But our director of intelligence in the cabinet, Tulsi Gabbard, said no, they weren't. They weren't going to. So why are we there?
Major problem, which was proliferation of nuclear weapons in that region, as Saudi Arabia would get one, as UAE would get one, and certainly Turkey would get one. So the question I have is, we can argue about how the war has been.
Almost like it'd be a good idea to take them away from everyone in the region, like just no nuclear weapons for anyone in the Middle East. And that's what I'm for. Take them all out of there.
Worked out, but I'm not sure that anybody has a better idea of how to disarm the Iranians from their nuclear aspirations. And any suggestion that the JCPOA was the right answer, well, the fact remains, if it was the right answer, why didn't Biden renew the agreement
Absolutely.
when he was president? So look, but we can talk about how the conduct of the war and whether it's going to achieve what we want, but sooner or later, it was inevitable, and let's just accept that. Let's do it now rather than later.
And when he says we, he's not talking about the American people who have pretty much have a consensus here. We don't want this war at all. So he's talking about the Zionists. When he says we, he's talking about what the Zionists want, the Zionists that are in charge right now. That's what he means.
I mean, my issue with what you've said is that if we go back to a year ago, last summer, there was the 12-day war, which looked brutally simple, short, and effective. And we were told
the most effective military campaign in American history, they said at the time. Got it all. Yet we're back there still.
Or by the President of the United States, this would put back the nuclear capability and aspirations of Iran by decades. And I believed him. I thought, great. And I applauded that action. 12 days, it seemed very surgical. It seemed very precise. They'd taken out all the nuclear bases. They'd taken out the nuclear scientists. It seemed very specific, a bit like when Trump took out Soleimani. But there we were, General Kimmitt, only 8 months later, where far from putting it back decades, it turned out we hadn't even put it back 8 months. And we're supposed to believe then the threat was so imminent, it required an immediate attack to stop Iran developing these nuclear weapons within weeks. And so I'm scratching my head going, well, how can both those things be true? Which one are we supposed to believe? Are we supposed to believe what was said last year, or are we supposed to believe what we heard in February?
I see the failure coming out of people like Chuck DeVore. He's a military intelligence officer. The BDA assessment that was done by our intelligence services was pretty lousy. I think Chuck would have to agree with that as well, because it turns out we really didn't obliterate it. But the fact remains.
Do you mean they lied to us after that and told us all it was the greatest military whatever in history? Do you mean they lied to us? And you want us to trust them going forward with more wars after we just found out they lied about the first engagement? All right.
That we have not begun to scratch the surface of a strategic bombing campaign. Britain knows what a strategic bombing campaign looks like. It was called the Battle of Britain. Now, I'm not suggesting or advocating for significant amounts of attacks against civilian infrastructure, but sometimes it has to be done if the option is better we have a significantly damaged Iran in every sense of the word than an Iranian regime that has a nuclear weapon. And let's talk about this world of
so
Iran.
You are advocating for it.
I'm advocating.
You are advocating for it.
May I finish, Cenk? Now, what I'm saying is, if it is clear that this agreement does not stop Iran's permanent path to a nuclear weapon, then we have to continue the war in order to extract that agreement out of them.
And we'll just have to stay there for 20 or 30 years if we have to. Got to get all the uranium out of Iran. It's never done anything to anyone.
But how do we know?
So we're done.
Well, hang on one second, Jay. I mean, General Kimmitt, my response to be, you've repeatedly said you wouldn't trust the Iranian regime as far as you could throw them. According to this leaked agreement, they're going to get $300 billion, in fact, $325 billion. I wouldn't trust them to spend that how we'd like them to. Would you? Why would they not just do exactly what Hamas did when they were given billions funneled through and encouraged by Netanyahu?
The first thing I did say in my first answer was this agreement better have an intrusive inspection and verification process. Otherwise, you're right, we can't trust them. And if we don't get that, then I will tell you I don't agree with this agreement.
Okay, let me bring in Lieutenant Colonel.
But this same clown has no problem that Israel doesn't get their nuclear weapons inspected. They just pretend like they don't have them. That's the fucking part that gets to me, that all these military men are perfectly fine with our greatest ally lying to us, but our enemies have to be truthful. We got to make sure they're truthful. But we don't have to make sure our allies are truthful, apparently.
You have the same process for Israel?
Cenk,
I'll come to you, Cenk, in a second.
Inspection process for Israel?
Cenk, you're talking about.
I mean, there is a country that has weapons of mass destruction, right? There's a country in the Middle East that's super dangerous.
Here we go.
Has attacked 7 of its neighbors and already has weapons of mass destruction, and weapons that they stole from us. They stole the nuclear technology, they stole the uranium, they stole the nuclear triggers. That's Israel. So why are you not concerned about the out-of-control rogue state that already has a nuclear weapon and threatens all of their neighbors? And you're concerned with someone who doesn't have that and is now promising to never have that.
You can let me answer.
So by your standard, we should invade Israel.
Okay, three things I'd say. Look,
I'd agree with that.
I don't know what your relationship is with your country of birth, but you want to talk about genocide, let's talk about Armenia. And
what does that have to do with what we're talking about? Is that not a clear pivot to all of y'all? Do y'all not see that pivot? He's dancing up there. What the fuck does the Armenian genocide have to do with what we're talking about right now? He just knows what Cenk was born there, so he's just going to try and pivot and get him talking about that instead.
And if you want to talk about not being able
nice distraction. Yeah, I could talk about it.
Let me finish. And then the next issue is, if you talk about not going into Lebanon, in fact, Turkey over the last few years has established, just like the Israelis have in Lebanon, a foothold in the first 30 kilometers of Syria because they're afraid of the terrorism coming from the PKK. And then the third, just like Iran.
Hey, you know what? We don't have to give Turkey millions of dollars every year, billions of dollars every year, and we don't have to give them free bombs to go make that happen either, do we? We should just stay the fuck out of that. But we are giving all that shit to one of the other countries that's doing all that shit. So maybe we should stop doing that.
Iran feels it's threatened. It's logical for them to want a nuclear weapon. You know why it's logical? When an Egyptian general told me, we're not worried about Iran because if they get a nuclear weapon, we're friends with them. You need to worry about Iran, about Israel having a nuclear weapon. And I said, look, if I had been invaded by every one of my neighbors repeatedly, maybe I'd have a nuclear weapon to protect me as well. It's pretty good deterrence.
Well, that's what's happening in Iran right now. So by your logic, Iran should have a nuclear weapon to deter Israel from invading it. You just said it. You said if you get invaded by your neighbors, like Iran is getting invaded by Israel right now, you would logically want to have a weapon of mass destruction. Now, I want to answer the questions you said.
I didn't know I was coming on the Cenk show.
Yeah, okay, well, that's your problem for saying things that are incorrect and having me to correct you. So now you made it seem like I care what the Turkish government's doing. I don't care at all. I'm an American. So I think that Turkey being in northern Syria is wrong. And I know a lot about the Armenian genocide because I grew up with Turkish propaganda. And I, like a lot of the Israelis now, I believe the same things. Oh, it's not a genocide. They were hiding behind human shields. We were doing self-defense. We had to move them for their own benefit. So I know exactly what genocide denial propaganda sounds like. And it's exactly what the Israelis are doing now. It's exactly what Team Israel in America, which you sound like you're on, is doing right now to justify all of Israel's wars and genocide and make it seem in some bizarro Alice in Wonderland type of situation that Israel is defending itself. What part of Israel is in southern Lebanon? No, they're aggressively taking land. Netanyahu bragged that they already have 60% of Gaza and they're going to take 70% of Gaza. What happened to self-defense? It was about land theft. Oh, no, I'm just speaking against Israel. Oh, Team Israel wants me to hurry up. Don't say things. Remember, the boogeyman is Muslim. And this Kimmitt is talking about how, oh my God, what if Turkey has a nuclear weapon? Turkey's a NATO ally. So you have a problem with a NATO ally being stronger, but you don't have a problem with a deeply hostile state like Israel that has attacked
rogue state,
7 of its neighbors, that has taken their land, having a weapon of mass destruction that they stole from us, and lording it over the Middle East.
It's not a hypothetical nuke in Turkey. They're very, very fucking real in Israel. So this hypothetical with Turkey may get one. Well, we've got bigger issues because this other country stole all our plans, stole our uranium, and then made a fucking program in like 50 years. So we got to take care of them first, I think.
They call this Team America, brother. We got no interest in Israel stealing southern Lebanon. Let's get the hell out of there. We have no interest in murdering Iranians on behalf of Israel. Let's get the hell out of there. And is anybody talking about gas prices, the food prices, affordability? Nobody cares about American citizens. You're all obsessed with Israel.
You talked about a lot of things, so let me just go to some of the other guests. Lieutenant Colonel DeVore, I want to take you back to I think, a Sidewinder missile which came your way from General Kimmitt. Or unless I misheard him, I think he called you lousy.
God, the American intelligence is lousy. Yeah. That's what we do with all of our intelligence officers. We beat them up repeatedly because they're not clairvoyant.
This is true.
This is true.
No, I'm all for panelists going after each other, but I've had a good old military two-way like this for a while. But look, to that point,
two generals playing grab ass right in front of us.
A few big points that have been made that I really think need to be responded to. Okay, so first of all, about the urgency of this operation after Midnight Hammer. Iran was rapidly adding to their ballistic missile inventory with the help of the People's Republic of China. The fear was that they were very quickly going to reach the point beyond which they would be able to saturate the anti-missile defenses of the region. Israel and the Gulf Arab allies, as well as any U.S. anti-missile platforms in the region.
When he says the region, just know he means Israel. That's what he's talking about.
Once they got to that point with over 10,000 ballistic missiles, which they were rapidly approaching with China's help, the fear was they would reach a point of invulnerability where any sort of effort to try to prevent the reassembling of that nuclear program would be met with mass casualties throughout the Middle East. Now, to the issue of nuclear weapons in the region, Israel has had nuclear weapons for probably going on 40 plus years. They have not.
Hey, before you skip over that, how did they get them? Where'd they get the uranium from? Where'd they get the plans from? Where did they get it all from? Did they buy it or did they get it otherwise?
Use them on anyone. The Iranian regime chants death to America and death to America and death to Israel constantly. Say again?
Why don't they admit it? Why don't they just admit it? They want everybody else.
It's the typical thing of strategic ambiguity. It's like the U.S. policy towards Taiwan. We might or we might not do something. So
but we do admit we have nukes, right? We do admit that. People know. I think the cat's out of the bag. So why is the cat still in the bag in Israel?
The point is that.
But I really don't. Sorry, just to labor that point. Hang on 1 second. I really do not understand why it is, and I've raised this point many times on this show. I do not understand why Israel, which demands full transparency from countries like Iran, right down to exactly how much enriched uranium they've got, why it's generally agreed that they have a huge number of nuclear weapons themselves, but they get a pass. They're the only country in the world that doesn't have to even admit they've got nuclear weapons. And, to General Kimmitt's point, if Saudi Arabia did want one, or Qatar wanted one, or the UAE wanted one, I'm at a bit of a loss to understand why, if Israel's allowed to have a lot of them, why they shouldn't be allowed to.
It's really simple. The General Kimmitt mentioned it. They've been invaded by all of their neighbors in recent history.
Oh, whoa. Have they been invaded? Or have they invaded a bunch of their neighbors? It's hard to consider it an invasion whenever your country's just sitting here and then you drop bombs on them. It kind of sounds like you're invading them. They are not being invaded.
The missile force that they have, the bombs that they have, roughly 30 or 40, are a deterrent against a second Holocaust. The big difference between them.
Back to World War II. Here we go again. Back to World War II. We can't have a discussion without World War II.
And the state of Iran is not a typical Westphalian state. They are like a death cult. They have a millenarian belief that if they cause enough chaos, they can usher in the arrival of the 12th Imam, the Mahdi. And so when you have a group of people who
don't talk Klingon at me, boy,
actually want to use a nuclear weapon, then they're hard to deter because it's part of their eschatology. They are not a normal nation state.
But Lieutenant Colonel, given
wait.
that, hang on, Cenk, hang on. Still my show, just I think. Hang on, still my show. It's called Cenk Uygur Uncensored, and by the way, we should maybe have that conversation. But until it is, I conduct the thing here. Lieutenant Colonel, this is fine, but again, if you take the principle that if you come under attack, you should be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. Well, what about the Gulf states? They've all come under attack from Iran. The Americans believe that Iran is literally weeks away from developing nuclear weapons. That threat doesn't seem to have been diminished at all by any of this warmongering in the last 16 weeks from what I can see. So if you take that argument, if you extrapolate that out, if you're Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, whatever, given you've come under attack from your neighbor, Iran, why should you not be allowed to have the same nuclear deterrent?
Well, what about Lebanon then? Should Lebanon get one? What about Turkey? Turkey, they're talking about attacking Turkey next. What about Gaza? Should they get one? Let's just everybody have one. Or here's a better idea. How about we take them away from everyone over there, right? Because there's only one that has them right now. So let's take them from them. And now it's a whole new ball game. Like now you have to fight with conventional weapons. So let's just do that.
That Israel has.
So here's the challenge, right? Israel has had nuclear weapons for probably 40 plus years. The Middle East, minus Iran, has shockingly been without nuclear weapons. So if the UAE, if Saudi Arabia, if Turkey were to suddenly want a nuclear weapon, now why is that? What's the proximate trigger? It certainly wasn't Israel having nuclear weapons. No, it's the Islamic Republic of Iran having nuclear weapons that is the trigger.
Right.
And it is longstanding U.S. policy to be opposed to nuclear proliferation. It makes...
Except whenever Israel has it. We're fine with nuclear proliferation. Can't say it. But proliferation, can't say it. Unless it's Israel. They can have them. But everybody else we have to stop because Israel needs an advantage because they're God's chosen people.
Things progressively more difficult.
Except Israel.
The more nations that are armed with nuclear weapons.
Like so has the United States... Well, hang on. Has the United States actively sought to stop Israel having more nuclear weapons in the last 20, 30 years? Or has it just allowed it to?
I'm aware of no policy one way or the other with regards to the U.S. and Israel. There may be some classified negotiations. But what shockingly, prior to this conversation with Cenk, you don't really hear a lot of concern about Israel's nuclear weapons program because they haven't used it. Nor do they threaten their neighbors with it constantly.
They've used it to attack all their neighbors. They use the threat of it, and they say, well, you can't attack us back because we have nuclear weapons. And the one country that has nuclear weapons in the Middle East has launched wars against almost all of its neighbors. So they've got that as backup. They've got Iron Dome as backup, and it has emboldened them to take land in Gaza, to take land in Lebanon, which you guys are denying. Iran has taken no land. Israel has taken land over and over again. Do you know that in 1948, only 6% of the land was Jewish? Now it's 78% is owned by Israel. How did the settler colony get from 6% to 78%?
This is my turn to begin to talk
through
over
a campaign of ethnic cleansing and genocide.
I was in southern Lebanon in 1986 with the IDF. Land that the IDF voluntarily left. Why were they there?
Sense.
They went up to try to kick out the PLO. You know who rescued the PLO? President Reagan and the Americans rescued the Palestine Liberation Organization. Israel left Lebanon. They left Gaza. So they were attempting to trade land for peace.
And then they came back in.
Unfortunately,
and they came back in. Didn't they come back in 3 times?
And got into southern Lebanon.
They keep wanting to take Lebanon, and you just told us you're with the IDF.
The United Nations was supposed to...
Yeah, I think the big takeaway there is this guy was working with the IDF.
...to prevent Hezbollah from getting to be a murderous force, and they utterly failed. In fact, Hezbollah built
You make it sound like Lebanon invaded Israel.
Outposts.
Israel invaded Lebanon. You're inverting reality. You're making it sound like Lebanon invaded Israel. No, Israel is inside of Lebanon.
That's the part that gets me. They're not even hiding it. It's just people pretend like they don't see it. You're right. He did go out and brag about it. They're bragging about buying TikTok so they can brainwash our kids, so that the kids aren't all against them, because that's why they needed TikTok, because kids are there. And we just act like, oh, that's okay. Here, give little Johnny his fucking phone so he can go get on TikTok and be brainwashed.
on right now. Do you condemn Israel for being in southern Lebanon?
By Hezbollah,
do you condemn them for taking 70% of Gaza?
Imagine if America was taking missiles daily from Tijuana, Mexico. Tijuana would be
well, you're making the argument for Hezbollah.
If that happened.
You're making the. I can't believe you're making a pro-Hezbollah argument, because what Hezbollah is saying is, can you imagine if America was invaded and they took half of Texas, as they're doing right now? Israel invaded Lebanon and has taken southern Lebanon. Well, of course we would fight back. You're saying, and I agree, and that's what Hezbollah is saying. Well, of course we're going to fight back. They're in our land. They're literally stealing our homes. What do you want us to do? Go, I surrender to the mighty Israelis.
Hezbollah is a cat's paw for
By the way,
Iran.
you guys call it
Hezbollah is an Iranian proxy that Iran has spent billions of dollars training and equipping.
So what?
They killed 280
You make it sound like our priorities are Israel's priorities.
Hezbollah and the
Hezbollah
Iranians
is defending
were
Lebanon against Israel. So what?
Hundreds of U.S.
We're not
Marine
responsible for Israel. Israel is not our daddy. Israel might be your daddy, but Israel's not our daddy.
Iran.
This guy was in office, I think, I would imagine, whenever the Taliban was created by us, too. So they're acting like they're above all this, while they did the exact same thing. The exact same thing.
Iran has been at war with us since 1979, sir.
All right. Let me bring in Brian, who's been waiting.
Israel's been at war with us the entire time. Israel stole our technology. Israel stole $300 billion from us. Israel made us fight 7 wars for $8 trillion. Israel's actually our enemy.
And stole the uranium.
And you guys keep aiding and abetting our enemies.